Okay, let's just jump right in. The danger is real. Orbital trash, largely created by foreign adversaries, is now directly threatening the lives of astronauts and, the future of U.S. assets in space. We're doing a deep dive today on a topic that has pretty tragically moved from being this theoretical long-term risk to an immediate physical hazard.
It's very immediate.
You just have to look at what happened with China's Shenzhou 20 crew. They'd been up there for 6 months on the Tiangong space station, and their departure gets delayed for over a week. The reason why is, well, it's chilling.
It is. Their main spacecraft was damaged by a tiny but very high-velocity piece of space debris.
And what kind of damage are we talking about?
That one impact created tiny cracks in the viewport window of their return capsule. That was enough. It was enough damage to make the vehicle completely unsafe for re-entry.
So they couldn't use it?
No. Their only option was to switch to the newly arrived Shenzhou 21 vehicle to get home.
And the global reaction was, it was swift and it was serious. Experts were immediately calling this a massive wake-up call, not just for one country, but for the whole world.
It really underscored the need for, dedicated international space rescue capabilities.
Exactly. This single event just laid bare the true cost of operating in such a crowded orbital environment, an environment that's now just filled with debris. And a lot of that debris can be traced right back to one nation's aggressive and, frankly, careless actions.
And this is really what we need to unpack today. Our mission for this deep dive is to look at the startling dual nature of this nation's space activity.
Dual nature? How so?
Well, sources repeatedly show their rapid expansion is making space congested, contested, and competitive. Those are the 3 C's of the threat. But at the same time, we're seeing these incredibly advanced efforts by the very same nation to protect its own assets and its people from the very hazards it's creating for everyone else.
Okay, so we're going to frame our deep dive around those 3 C's. Congested, contested, and competitive. Because really, they're the key threats to long-term space stability and, critically, to the ability of the U.S. to maintain access and leadership in what is, well, the ultimate high ground. So let's start with the environmental problem, congestion. This is where the statistics stop being just numbers on a page, and they start to sound, honestly, like intentional sabotage.
The imbalance is staggering.
Right. You look at the total number of operational satellites in orbit, and this nation's satellites make up, what is it, about 7%?
Roughly 7%, yes.
But then you look at the total amount of space debris.
And the sources state they account for nearly 25% of the global total.
That's a massive, unignorable imbalance.
And that imbalance has a very specific origin. It goes back to the 2007 anti-satellite test, the ASAT test.
And this wasn't an accident.
Oh, no. It was a reckless demonstration of force. They intentionally destroyed one of their own retired meteorological satellites. That single incident became the largest debris-producing event in history.
How much chaos are we talking about from that one test?
It instantly created 3,400 pieces of trackable space debris. And a lot of that is still up there today.
Yeah.
It fundamentally destabilized low Earth orbit. But, we can't just talk about history. This behavior is ongoing.
Right. We saw a perfect example of this kind of neglect just recently, in August 2024.
That's right. The Chinese Long March 6A rocket, it just broke apart in orbit. That alone generated a cloud of at least 700 new fragments.
Which poses a direct threat to what?
A substantial and immediate risk to commercial and military LEO constellations around the world. And if you look at the long-term patterns, China has accumulated more dead rocket mass, spent upper stages just drifting in long-lived orbits than the rest of the world combined since the year 2000. It shows a persistent systemic pattern of treating space like an unlimited junkyard.
And if we look at the absolute worst-case scenario from all this crowding, we land on the Kessler syndrome. Can you break that down for us? I think it's a concept that really emphasizes the gravity of this threat.
Imagine space as a highway where all the cars are moving at hypersonic speeds. The Kessler syndrome is what happens when one big collision triggers an unstoppable cascading chain reaction.
A domino effect.
Exactly. The fragments from that first crash are moving so fast that they cause more collisions, which create debris exponentially faster than we can track. This process could create a lethal, permanent halo of debris around Earth. It would render entire orbital regions unusable for generations.
And the conditions for that are building now.
They are. Right now, there are over 900,000 objects larger than 1 centimeter orbiting Earth. That concentration is exactly what creates the precursor conditions for this terrifying syndrome.
And on top of the physical debris, there's this operational secrecy that just makes it all worse.
Absolutely. The lack of transparency around these debris events, whether it's the original ASAT test or a recent rocket breakup, it makes it incredibly difficult for specialists to accurately model the future environment. They can't predict collision risks.
So the secrecy hurts everyone.
It directly hurts everyone trying to operate safely in space. It puts all our assets and our astronauts at a much greater risk.
Okay, let's pivot now to the economic battlefield. The U.S. commercial space sector has historically been the leader, but now we're facing a huge challenge from the competitive nature of China's space program.
And it's not slow growth. We're talking about over 160 commercial space companies popping up there since 2014.
And that robust growth creates a financial burden for U.S. operators, right?
Yeah.
It connects the physical threat of congestion directly to American balance sheets.
That's a great way to put it. The heightened risk from all this debris means U.S. companies face increased operational costs just to stay in business. They have to budget for replacing damaged spacecraft more often, and critically, they have to constantly over-engineer new satellites.
Over-engineer them for what?
For greater resilience against these foreign-made hazards.
So we're essentially paying a debris tax just to launch and operate. It's draining resources that should be going to innovation. What does over-engineering really mean in financial terms?
It means higher costs everywhere. To withstand impacts, satellites need heavier, more complex shielding. That increases the total mass of the spacecraft.
And more mass means higher launch costs.
Higher launch costs, and it also means less room, less capacity for the actual scientific or commercial payload the satellite is supposed to be carrying. It's a direct financial penalty imposed by orbital pollution.
And then there's the direct strategic competition. The sources say these companies operate with an unfair advantage.
That's really the core of the competitive threat. Chinese mercantilist industrial policies allow their companies to offer dramatically cheaper alternatives to U.S. products.
Which poses a very real risk of undermining the profitability and market share of the American commercial space sector.
It's essentially economic warfare, but fought with subsidized pricing.
And this competition then translates into a serious security threat through proliferation.
It absolutely does. Chinese providers are actively offering their technologies, remote sensing data, SATCOM, their Beidou navigation system to other countries.
So they're providing alternatives to things like GPS.
Exactly. And by doing that, they're enabling U.S. adversaries around the world to become more independent of secure U.S. systems. This fundamentally complicates U.S. military strategy and, it reduces our leverage and situational awareness.
Which brings us to the most severe threat. Space as a contested warfighting domain. This is about seizing strategic dominance. Sources quote PLA analysts who openly call space the ultimate high ground.
And a new commanding height of war that they believe must be seized and controlled to win any future conflict.
That doctrine justifies a massive investment in counterspace tech.
A comprehensive suite of technologies. These systems are specifically designed to degrade, disrupt, or destroy U.S. assets, and in doing so, undermine the U.S. military's conventional advantage. It's an explicit plan to take out our eyes and ears in orbit.
Let's run through the arsenal they're fielding. What do we need to be prepared for?
First, they have fielded kinetic kill vehicles, or KKVs. These are operational ground-based ASAT missiles designed to physically destroy satellites in LEO. The 2007 test was the proof of concept. Now the weapon is fielded.
And it's not just physical impact?
No. They've also fielded directed energy weapons. Specifically powerful ground-based ASAT lasers. These are meant to blind or permanently damage the sensitive optical sensors on our key satellites, basically rendering them useless.
And the dual-use tech is probably the most insidious, because you can't be sure if a satellite is approaching to help or to attack.
You're talking about their co-orbital satellites, vehicles like the Shijian series or Aolong 1. They're designed for very close proximity operation.
And the official reason is?
The official reason is to test things like robotic arms for debris removal, but those capabilities are inherently dual use. That same robotic arm could easily be used to grapple, disable, or attack an adversary's satellite. It's essentially close quarters combat in space.
And finally, we can't forget the digital threats.
Right. Electronic warfare and cyber capabilities. This includes sophisticated jammers that can disrupt our communications and navigation, plus advanced cyber attacks. We saw a demonstration of this back in 2012 with the attack on NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL.
Which allegedly gave them what?
Full functional control over its internal networks. So this is a comprehensive, multi-domain threat designed to shut down American capabilities across the board.
This brings us to a really fascinating and deeply ironic paradox. Given that this nation is the world's biggest creator of long-term space junk, how are they handling the safety of their own crew on the Tiangong space station? I mean, the Shenzhou 20 damage showed them the danger is real.
The sources reveal a huge, hyper-focused investment in protecting their own station. They're using highly specialized stuffed Whipple shields.
Which are? What, exactly?
They're complex, multi-layered defensive structures. They're designed to stop not just micrometeoroids, but specifically the anthropogenic space debris. The debris caused by human, and in this case, their own activity.
And they're using advanced materials for this, right? It's not just a sheet of aluminum.
Absolutely not. The shields use layers of advanced composites, specifically basalt fabric and aramid III fabric, as stuffing. These layers are designed to dissipate the energy of a hypervelocity impact. And to prove it works, they ran 9 hypervelocity impact tests at speeds between 3.1 and 7.9 kilometers per second.
To mirror the real-world collision risks. The technical analysis shows just how serious they are about this. They didn't just copy existing designs.
Correct. They derived a new complex mathematical model, a ballistic limit equation, or BLE. It calculates the critical particle size that would puncture the shield. And what's really revealing is that they openly based this new BLE on previous work by Western agencies, specifically the NASA Nextel Kevlar stuffed Whipple shield equation.
Wait, so they used the U.S. government's own scientific work as a baseline, but then created a new mathematical model because the old safety parameters weren't conservative enough for the environment they are now operating in.
Exactly. The final analysis showed that their resulting equations are explicitly designed to be extremely conservative. They prioritize crew safety by making sure the calculated perforation threshold is far greater than what standard models might suggest. This is their expensive insurance policy against the chaos and debris that they themselves have overwhelmingly created.
It's the ultimate reflection of a nation creating a problem and then spending millions to protect itself from the consequences while everyone else bears the risk.
What this whole deep dive really reveals is this core, unsustainable tension. We see a nation that's simultaneously developing some of the world's most aggressive counter-space weapons and creating the largest single source of orbital debris,
While
while also fielding highly advanced conservative technology like these basalt and aramid shields to protect their own people from the very mess they've made.
that tension has to drive our final thought. This crisis of space debris and astronaut safety, as we saw with the tiny cracks on the Shenzhou 20 capsule, it transcends national borders.
It's a global problem.
So if the reckless actions of a single nation can potentially threaten the Kessler syndrome and, trap humanity on Earth, what level of shared security and safety standards must be enforced globally by responsible actors? We have to demand accountability.
And that demand is already leading to some concrete proposals. Experts are now suggesting the establishment of a voluntary space sector sustainability reporting framework.
How would that work?
It would work within global financial markets. The idea is to use financial incentives and public accountability, not just treaties, to curb this reckless behavior. This is all being discussed ahead of the key Unispace 4 meeting on space debris in 2027. It's a way to hit polluters where it hurts most, their bottom line, and force transparency on those who would destabilize our shared orbital future.